Right. Okay. Well, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Aaron Esri. I am the Assistant Extension Specialist for Viticulture and Enology here at Oklahoma State University. And today we are talking about fungicides, particularly for vineyard and grape production. So this PowerPoint will cover the different fungicides used in grape production and common ones. There's many different fungicides, but we'll just cover about a dozen ones that are used. Information about the fungicides. We're going to cover modes of action and the importance of rotating your fungicides, the timing of the sprays, signal words. So every fungicide will have a signal word. That's kind of a quick indicator of how dangerous it is. There's caution, warning, danger, danger being the most harmful. Um, and then re-entry intervals, pre-harvest intervals, and that'll kind of tie in with timing of sprays because each one of these fungicides, there is a time in which after you spray it, you cannot legally harvest. And there's also a time after you spray it in which you cannot legally or safely enter the vineyard. You see, that's a re-entry interval. So we'll cover all that. So we'll start with what is a fungicide? A fungicide is a preventative or a fungicide is a well, it's used to prevent or control fungal diseases in plants or crops by inhibiting spore germination or damaging the cell membrane of the fungus. A fungicide is a chemical concoction that kills fungus. That's the kind of the quick definition. On the left there, you'll notice this photo of a disease triangle. So in order for a fungus to occur, in order for a disease to occur, you need a susceptible host, which is the grapevine. Okay, that's our host in this case, the grapevine. You need a favorable environment, which usually consists of rainfall and coolish to warmish temperatures. And then you also need the pathogen itself. So you need the fungus spores or the mycelium or the overwintering sclerotia. You need all three. And when you have all three, you have a disease. You see, that's so our host is a grapevine. Our pathogen is the fungus spores, however they appear. They're airborne or soil-borne. And then the favorable environment. And this is one, if you're in a drier climate, you have a less favorable environment. If you are in a very humid environment, you have a more favorable environment. You see, the temperature anywhere between 50 Fahrenheit to 85 Fahrenheit is favorable. Lots of humidity after a rainfall. You see that moist, humid conditions, and it's 75. That's very favorable for a fungal outbreak. So you have to break one of those legs of the disease triangle in order to not have a disease. And so this webinar is a fungicide. We're just taking away, we're trying to kill the pathogen in this case. So if you didn't know, keep that disease triangle in mind. You always need all three in order to have a disease. If you take one away, you won't have a disease. So, and this fungicide webinar, we're taking away the pathogen and creating an unfavorable environment. Okay. So fungicides, there's really two forms. There's a contact and then there's systemic. A contact creates a protective barrier on the plant where the fungus cannot penetrate or grow. A systemic is when the grapevine actually absorbs the fungicide, and it will. And that's it. A systemic fungicide, the grapevine takes it up and just disperses it all through its tissues. It can be absorbed through the leaves. It can be taken up through the roots. Systemics are really good because they protect the whole plant. Contacts are good too. They're just different ways of doing it. And then there's broad spectrum versus narrow spectrum. A broad spectrum will kill a lot of stuff. A narrow spectrum is kind of just particular to either black rot or anthracnose. You see, narrow spectrum is for one or two diseases only. Okay, modes of action. I'll explain modes of action as we go along through each fungicide, but I'll explain it here too. The mode of action is how the fungicide kills or prevents the fungus, also known as a frac group. Every fungicide has one. They're either going to be, I think there's about 40 or 50 different modes of action. You see, there's 40 or 50 different frac groups. There's so many. It's just a list and how it works. But examples are group 3, group 7, group 11, group M, which is like multiple. And you can have a fungicide with two groups. You can the active ingredient can be group 3 and group 7, you see. But all you need to know is that that is how the fungicide works. It's too many to remember. I can't call offhand, but I'm like example, one group will inhibit enzyme production. Another group will the chemical disrupts the membrane. You know, another group inhibits lipid production, something like that. You see, each one of these fungicides inhibits or kills the fungus in a different way, and that's your mode of action. That's your frat group. Now, it's important that you always rotate your modes of action because the fungus will develop a resistance to that mode of action. I mean, it's evolution. The fungus, if you spray your grapevines with a group 3, for example, there always is a chance that there's a tiny little living spore that was immune to it. It just developed a resistance. Well, that little fungus will then grow and reproduce and develop, and you keep spraying it with a group 3, it's ineffective because that fungicide has evolved like in that season to resist that fungicide. So that's why if you keep spraying group 3 all season long, you're still going to get disease outbreak. That fungus builds a resistance. You got to switch, go to group 11, group 7, different group. So that's why it's important to always rotate your modes of action. Okay, timing of vineyard sprays. It really depends on your site and again, your environment. Here in Stillwater, Perkins, Oklahoma, we're semi-arid. We get about 25 to 35 inches of rain per year. Some days are humid, some are not. I spray probably about 8 to 12 times a year here, you know. But we'll just kind of run through a list here. So I started with zero. Zero is a dormant spray. You spray when the vines are dormant, February, March, up to you. The first real spray occurs somewhere between 3 to 6 inch shoot growth. And then you just want to spray again loosely, depends on your environment. You want to spray every 10 to 21 days up until veraison, depending on your climate. And then you can even spray into veraison if your fungicide allows. Oh yeah, that was number 3. Can spray into veraison depending on the pre-harvest interval, you see. So if you have a fungicide with a 21-day pre-harvest interval, you probably don't want to spray that around veraison. You got to find something that has a 1, 2, 7-day pre-harvest interval. And again, just more humid growing regions require more frequent spraying. Okay, signal words. Every fungicide has one. It's you're either going to have a caution, a warning, or a danger. Caution is slight toxicity. Don't touch it, but if you do touch it, it's not the end of the world. Wash it off, soap and water, clean yourself up. Warning is moderate toxicity. Will still harm you, but just be careful. And then danger is highly toxic or corrosive. It will burn you and can cause death. So if you have a fungicide that has a danger, and it's usually those colors too. If it's a red danger warning, or yeah, a red danger signal word, just be very, very, very careful. Wear gloves, wear a mask, don't touch it. Like it will hurt you. So just always pay attention to the signal words on your fungicide. Okay, we'll talk about the actual fungicides themselves. Any questions on anything I covered so far? Okay, all right, I'll just keep going. Okay, so we'll start with diethane F45. And I'm not trying to promote any products here. I'm just talking what I use, what other people use, what the industry uses. And that's how we're going to run through this list. So I have about a dozen fungicides lined up, and we'll start with diethane F45. So the active ingredient in this one is mancozeb. Always pay attention to your active ingredient. Mancozeb is the chemical used to kill a fungus. It controls black rot, bunch rot, phomopsis, downy mildew. Here it is, I think it's April 8th today, 2026. I've already sprayed diethane twice. You see, you use this one early. It has a group M3 mode of action. It's a contact fungicide. It's not systemic, which is fine. And it is usually the first spray of the season. And it's usually the first spray of the season because it has a 66-day pre-harvest interval. You see, you cannot spray this one late into the season because you just don't have enough time before you're ready to harvest. So that's why you use diethane early, because it has a long pre-harvest interval. The re-entry interval is 24 hours, meaning if you spray it today at 10 a.m., you have to wait a full 24 hours before you can safely re-enter the vineyard. That's your re-entry interval. It has a caution signal word. It's not too harmful, but still don't touch it. And then it also contains manganese and zinc. If you read on the label, maybe that's used for a chelating agent with the mancozeb, but it has a little bit of manganese and zinc in there too. So when you apply diethane, you're applying a little bit of manganese and zinc. Diethane F45, I use it every year. On to the next, Manzate Pro Stick. Now, Manzate has the active ingredient is also mancozeb. I'm going to switch back for a minute. Active ingredient mancozeb, active ingredient mancozeb. You see, they're the same active ingredient, and you can almost rotate these out interchangeably. Like they're really not there's not too much different between them. They're both a group M3 mode of action. Manzate Pro Stick, just like diethane, also controls black rot, bunch rot, phomopsis, downy mildew. It's also a contact fungicide, and this one is also usually a first or second spray of the season because it has that 66-day pre-harvest interval. So diethane and Manzate Pro Stick are very, very, very similar fungicides. They have the same active ingredient. The thing with Manzate Pro Stick, it contains more mancozeb and it has more manganese and zinc in it as well. I guess it's just a stronger concoction, but the chemicals are the same. So Manzate Pro Stick. Next fungicide, Rally. This is one I think a lot of people use, including myself. Rally 40 WSP. WSP stands for wettable soluble powder. So this fungicide actually comes in powder form, and you just mix it and dissolve it into a tank. I can never pronounce these active ingredients, but I think this one is myclobutylene, but that's the active ingredient there. It controls anthracnose, black rot, and powdery mildew. And this one is also a group 3 mode of action. So this kills the fungicide in the same way that diethane does. This one is systemic though. The grapevine will actually take this up through the leaves or through the roots and just push it all through its vascular system, and it'll translocate through the whole plant. Rally can also be used as a dormant spray. So people ask me like, when you spray during the dormant season? Well, Rally's a good candidate for this because it will also control Eutypa, which is kind of a wood disease. Eutypa will get into the actual bark, or not the bark, but the wood. It'll get into the actual wood. And so when you're dormant, that's all you have is wood. You don't have green tissue. So Rally is a good dormant spray for that reason. It will control Eutypa. 24-hour re-entry interval. And this one, you'll see, only has a 14-day pre-harvest interval. So you can use this one all the way up to veraison, even a little bit past veraison. 14-day pre-harvest interval. Caution signal word, not too dangerous. So Rally is a good one. I use Rally in our vineyard here too. Okay, Thompson M. A wettable soluble bag, kind of like a wettable soluble powder, but it's just in a little bag form. So Thompson M, active ingredient, thiophenate methyl. I don't know. Controls black rot, bunch rot, powdery mildew, phomopsis, and Eutypa, similar to Rally. This is a group 1 mode of action. So different. Rally was group 3, Thompson M is group 1. You could rotate these. This one is also systemic, wettable soluble bag. This one has a 48-hour re-entry interval. So a little bit more, I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but if you spray it today, right now, you can't go into the vineyard for 2 days, you see. But it has a shorter pre-harvest interval. I don't know how those, some scientist somewhere comes up with these numbers. But so you can spray up this one closer to harvest. Caution signal word. Okay, Pristine. So we'll spend a little time here. Pristine is a very, very good fungicide, very powerful. The price also reflects that. It is rather expensive, but it's great. It comes in a granular form, so it's not a liquid fungicide. It's not a powder fungicide, but you can kind of see through the container. Pristine is like a granular that just dissolve in the water. The active ingredients here are pyraclostrobin and borskylin. you have two active ingredients in here that work in two different ways, so that reflects your mode of action. So if you drop down, you see group 7 and group 11. Both of these active ingredients work in a different way to kill fungus, which is why it's so powerful. Also, probably why it's expensive, but it's good. It will take care of a lot of diseases: anthracnose, black rot, downy mildew, leaf blight, phomopsis. So you have two modes of action and one fungicide, and it's great. You still should rotate it. You can't just spray pristine all season long and you're okay because you're only spraying group 7 and group 11. So you got to rotate it in with rally or something. It's a broad spectrum systemic fungicide. It just tamps out a lot, kills a lot, prevents a lot. The grapevine absorbs it, absorbs the pristine, I mean. A 12-hour re-entry interval. So if you do have to do a lot of vineyard work and you have to spray as well, this might be a good one because you can spray it, you can spray at 8 o'clock at night and be back to work 8 a.m. the next morning. 14-day pre-harvest interval, so be careful as you get close to veraison. And then relatively safe, has a caution signal word, so it's not too harmful. But it's a good fungicide. I have pristine. It's great. I mean, it's about 400 or 500 bucks for that, 2.5 gallons or however much that is. But it's a good one. Good fungicide. I use pristine every year. Abound. This is another one that's used. I've actually never used Abound, but I do know of people that do use Abound, so we'll talk about it. Active ingredient azoxystrobin, something like that. Group 11. You see, I don't think, yeah. So Pristine's group 11, Abound's group 11. Black rot, downy mildew, powdery mildew, leaf blight, phomopsis. This one has a very short REI, 4 hours. You could spray this in the vineyard in the morning and then just be back to work after lunch. So again, depending on what you have to do in the vineyard, the fungus you're trying to target, Abound is a quick re-entry interval, but a 14-day pre-harvest interval. So you cannot harvest for 14 days, just FYI. Caution signal word. It's a good one. Okay. Revus top. I think that's how you pronounce it. Revus top. I've never used this one either, but I've heard of people that do. This one has two active ingredients and is a group 3 and group 40. I won't dare try to pronounce those chemicals. I don't know, mandiapropampenin and difenoconazole. I think that's right. But Revus top will control powdery mildew, one called Rotbrenner, which is actually a German word. I'm pretty sure that means red leaf. Rotbrenner or red disease, Rotbrenner, yeah. Leaf spot, phomopsis, black rot, anthracnose, downy mildew, leaf blight. This fungicide does a lot. Will take care of a lot of diseases. 12-hour re-entry interval and a 14-day pre-harvest interval. Caution word, so it's not too dangerous. Okay, I'll just keep going here. Rhyme. Okay, this is one that I use time to time. Some of my experiment is with this fungicide, actually, like my PhD work. The active ingredient in rhyme is flutrifol. Controls black rot and powdery mildew. It's highly systemic, though. I use this one as a soil drench. I'll actually mix up in a bucket and pour it on the vines like you're watering. So it's a soil drench application, highly systemic. It's taken up through the roots and then just translocated all through the plant. Group 3 mode of action, 12-hour re-entry interval, and then a 14-day pre-harvest interval. And this one's a little more dangerous. This one has a warning caution word. So moderate toxicity, you never want to touch it. You always want to handle it properly. This is one I've only ever used here since I've been at OSU. But just another fungicide to have in your toolkit. Yeah. Okay, Captan. I've heard of people using Captan. This one is Captan 80 WDG, which stands for water dispersed granular. I've never used Captan myself, so I'm just going off of what I've looked up. But it controls black rot, downy mildew, leaf spot, phomopsis. Those are, common diseases. A group M4 mode of action. I think we haven't had one with a group M4 yet, so you can rotate this one in with any of the others. Fairly cheap in price. I was looking it up. It's not so expensive, and I think that's probably a reason why a lot of people use it. It's readily available, not so expensive. It has a 48-hour re-entry interval, but also just a 1 day pre-harvest interval. I had to keep looking this up to make sure, and I'm right, but it's you can use this right up until the day of harvest. So if you are getting hit with diseases pretty hard, you might want to use Captan. Just be careful because it has a danger signal word. You don't want to touch the stuff or breathe it in or mess with it more than you have to. Maybe that's why it's so cheap. I don't know. It's dangerous though. Just be careful. Don't hurt yourself. Don't spill any on you. Always long sleeves, gloves, things like that. Okay. Zyram or Zyram XL. Again, one I've never used, but just for the sake of the webinar, I looked it up and some people do use it. Controls black rot, downy mildew, leaf spot, phomopsis, botrytis, group M3 mode of action. This one's a contact fungicide in broad spectrum, so it does not get absorbed through the plant. It only creates a barrier. So it's just contact. If it touches the fungus, it'll kill it. If it touches you, it'll probably harm you because it has a danger signal word. Again, highly toxic, but just a coating broad spectrum contact fungicide. 48-hour re-entry interval and a 21-day pre-harvest interval. So I'm going to back up a slide. You can use this one right up until the day of harvest, but you have to wait 3 weeks before harvest if you use this one. You see, so always just pay attention to your PHI, which is your pre-harvest interval, and know where you are. If you think you're going to harvest next week, you probably shouldn't use this one. But if you still have a month before harvest, use this one. All right, we'll just keep rolling right along. Bordeaux mixture. I don't know if I spelled Bordeaux right. There's the Cajun spelling and then there's the French spelling, and I interchanged the two, so forgive me if this is wrong. But the Bordeaux mixture, this is a classic legendary mix of copper sulfate and lime or hydrated lime. It's controls downy mildew, leaf spot, and leaf blight. So your downy mildew and leaf blight. A group M1 mode of action. Now, Bordeaux blends or Bordeaux mixture is you take copper sulfate and you take lime and you literally just mix them together. They're mixed in a 10-10-100 ratio. That is 10 pounds of copper sulfate, 10 pounds of hydrated lime, and then 100 gallons of water. Or you can, if you have a very small vineyard, you can scale it down and do a 1-1-10 ratio. 1 pound of copper sulfate, 1 pound of hydrated lime, 10 gallons of water. You seriously just mix the two in equal ratios, add water. That's a Bordeaux mixture. It was made famous in Bordeaux, France, 18th century or something. It's best applied fresh, though. It does not store long. So don't mix this up and then think you're going to come back to it in a month. Like use it that day or that week. It has a 12-hour re-entry interval, a 21-day pre-harvest interval from what I found online, at least. I don't know of anybody selling Bordeaux mixture, but you can buy the ingredients. You can buy copper sulfate, you can buy lime and just mix it up, make your own. I mean, that's how they did it, for a long time. So this is a neat old school legendary fungicide that actually does work. It's neat, and it's blue in color, and you just put it in your sprayer, spray it, or you can walk around with a bucket and a spatula and just wick it on your plants. But yeah, it's neat. I've never done it myself. I should. It looks like fun. But you can create your own homemade fungicide with copper sulfate and lime. That's all it is. Equal parts, mix it in water, you're ready to go. Bordeaux mixture. Okay, next one, oxidate. This one is kind of a last resort. I need to kill everything immediately type fungicide. Oxidate 2.0, Oxidate 5.0, there's a couple different ones out there. But the active ingredient is peroxyacetic acid and hydrogen peroxide. We're all familiar with hydrogen peroxide, but this peroxyacetic acid is another ingredient in there. It kills a bunch of stuff, including black rot, botrytis, downy mildew, powdery mildew, sour rot, phomopsis. And this one is kind of more of a curative fungicide. You see, most of these fungicides you spray preventatively. I'm spraying so I don't have a disease outbreak. Oxidate is one that's like, okay, I'm getting eat up with stuff. I need to just kill everything, go to oxidate. The neat thing about it is that it has a 1 hour re-entry interval and a 0 day post-harvest interval. You can use it literally the day of harvest. I mean, but like you're in a bad spot. If you're spraying fungicide the day of harvest, like that I don't, it's just not somewhere you want to be. But still, if you must, this is one that will work. Very corrosive, very dangerous. Peracetic acid will burn you. So do be careful. I know of a grower that does use oxidate. Says he loves it. It kills a lot, but just be careful. So just FYI, another one you can use. I don't know the mode of action. I actually don't know if it has one because it's an acid. You see, it's just hydrogen peroxide. I say it's just hydrogen peroxide and peroxyacetic acid. That's the chemicals used, but they're acids. Anyway, just one more you can have on hand to use. And then surfactant. So I think that actually goes through all the fungicides I was going to cover. This next one here is surfactants. So I get questions, what's a surfactant? What's a surfactant? A surfactant is a spreader sticker. It reduces the surface tension of water to allow the fungicide to stick to the leaves better. And it's actually worth using. I've sprayed fungicides without surfactants, and I've sprayed fungicides with surfactants, and you can tell it's very clear the fungicides you spray with surfactants stick so much better to the leaves. They don't run up and beat and fall off. You see, it's like they just stick right onto the leaves. And they're great. There's a few different kinds, but always look for non-ionic surfactant. I mean, I say always. If you know what you're doing, you can use oils or whatever. But for the most part, non-ionic surfactants are great. They're not so expensive. They're maybe 40 bucks a jug, 50 bucks, 80 bucks a jug. But it really, really, really works. They're good. So do use a surfactant, especially if you're spraying diethane or something like that, maybe Rally. Um, it just helps stick to the leaves a lot better. Surfactants, good stuff. And I think, yeah, that's all I was going to cover, but there's a few more slides here. When handling fungicides, always wear appropriate PPE. And I'm also speaking to myself too. Thoroughly wash your hands after handling. No smoking or eating. It's just common sense. And then always store and wash clothes separate from casual wear. That's a one we're always taught. If you go into the vineyard and you're spraying and your clothes are probably getting hit and with fungicide too. So when you go to take those off, kind of just keep them separate. Okay, and I think that brings us to the end. Yeah, thank you. Not so long on this one, but I will stop the recording and open it up to a Q&A. Thank you.